Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on Akashvani. This is Saira Mushtaba, bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment and more. The headlines. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi addresses G20 development ministers meeting in Varanasi via video message. Calls for use of technology to bridge data divide across the globe. G20 countries reaffirm their commitment to full and effective implementation of 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Retail inflation of India eases to 25-month low of 4.25% in May. Industrial output rises to 4.2% in April. Extremely severe cyclonic storm Biparjoy to cross Saurashtra and Kutch coast in Gujarat on Thursday. Prime Minister Modi reviews preparedness. Former Italian Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi passes away in Milan. And Wrestling Federation of India elections to be held on the 4th of next month. And in badminton, HS Pranoy to lead India's charge at Indonesia Super 1000 tournament in Jakarta. And now the news in detail. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said that democratization of technology is an important tool to bridge data divide in the world. He said digitalization has brought about a revolutionary change in India and pointed out that high-quality data is critical for meaningful policy making, efficient resource allocation, and effective public service delivery. Addressing the G20 Development Ministers meeting in Varanasi via video message on Monday, the Prime Minister asserted that technology is being used as a tool to empower people, make data accessible, and ensure inclusivity.
High quality data is critical for meaningful policy making, efficient resource allocation and effective public service delivery. Democratization of technology is an important tool to help bridge the data divide. In India, digitalization has brought about a revolutionary change. Technology is being used as a tool to empower people, make data accessible and ensure inclusivity.
Mr. Modi said development is a core issue for the countries of the Global South and they must send a strong message to the world about the action plan required to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals or SDGs. He said that since Global South countries were severely impacted by the disruptions created due to the COVID pandemic, while geopolitical tensions were responsible for food, fuel and fertilizer crisis, and in such conditions, the decisions these countries make are significant for humanity as a whole. The Prime Minister highlighted the significance of traditional Indian thought, which promotes a pro-planet lifestyle.
In India, we hold great respect for rivers, trees, mountains, and all elements of nature. Traditional Indian thought promotes a pro-planet lifestyle. Last year, along with the UN Secretary General, I launched Mission Life, Lifestyle for Environment. I am glad that this group is working to develop a set of high-level principles on life. This would be a significant contribution to climate action.
Giving a model of development to the G20 countries, the Prime Minister said India has made efforts to improve people's lives in more than 100 aspirational districts which were pockets of underdevelopment. And so Mr. Modi underscored that these aspirational districts have now emerged as catalysts of growth in the country as he urged the G20 development ministers to study this model of development. G20 countries strongly reaffirmed their commitment to the full and effective implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the achievement of its SDGs while leaving no one behind. After the day-long meeting and 2 sessions on SDGs and climate issues during the development ministers' meeting at Varanasi, the countries reaffirmed their commitment to putting sustainable development at the center of the international cooperation agenda. Countries also agreed to strengthen G20's efforts in building an integrated approach for achieving sustainable development in its 3 dimensions, that is, economic, social and environmental, in a balanced and integrated manner. They called for ambitious, concrete and collective G20 actions to create opportunities for all and address structural vulnerabilities and imbalances, especially those faced by developing countries, including least developed countries (LDCs) and small island developing states (SIDS). Addressing media about the outcome of the meeting, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar said that India has become the voice of the Global South and it has tried to raise the issues of financial gap and debt challenges regarding achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. He added that the concern of the Global South countries was raised by India before the developed countries by using the platform of G20. Talking about the major change brought by India after getting the G20 presidency, Dr. Jaishankar said that India's approach has brought development back in focus of G20 and raised hope for the Global South countries. Union Minister of State for Electronics and Information Technology, Rajiv Chandrasekhar, has expressed confidence that India has made a difference with effective use of advanced technology. Speaking at the opening session of the G20 Digital Economy Working Group meeting in Pune on Monday, he said that through digital revolution, India has not only become a producer, but also a major exporter of goods and services. He said, digital economy is the backbone of any country's development and India has done a great job in that field. India and Armenia signed an MOU on exchange of technology in the digital economy on the occasion. An MOU was also concluded between India and Sierra Leone, establishing diplomatic relations. In today's Hotspot section, we bring your discussion on India's G20 presidency, the voice of the Global South. In conversation are former diplomat Veena Sikri and moderator Lalima Anija Tang.
Well, India has a great fortune of holding the presidency of G20 this year. About 200 meetings have been planned all through the year in various parts of the country. And the theme is One Family, One Earth, One Future, much in tune with our Indian philosophy of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Well, we have with us Ambassador Ms. Veena Sikri to talk more on this. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Ambassador Sikri, this group of G20 or G20 as we call it in short, represents world's major economies to address global economic issues, affordable healthcare and sustainable development. And surely this encourages dialogue and cooperation at the global level. Let's have an overview first. What has been the contribution of G20, which was started way back in 1999, and where does India go from here?
You know, the G20 is indeed a very important mechanism which was really given a boost by the financial economic crisis of 2008 and which has the capacity, because it brings together the economically developed countries, it has the capacity to have a global impact, because in terms of percentages of world GDP, percentages of world population, it has a tremendously strong impact. And also I think it is a great reflection on the inadequacy of other mechanisms like the UN, like the UN Security Council, like institutions like Bretton Woods institutions, financial institutions, IMF, World Bank are doing. So there is a great deal of dissatisfaction at this point, and this has been considerably worsened by the COVID pandemic, where people are feeling extremely frustrated that even whatever little development work was happening earlier has been left behind, has further been held up, has further broken apart, as it were. So I think India's presidency of the G20, taking it up at this important moment, India took a very bold and correct decision to take the G20 meetings very seriously and take the problem, catch the problem by its horns, as it were, and present solutions which the world hopefully can accept and which will genuinely contribute to acceleration of world prosperity and taking it forward on that account. And I think in this context, the development ministers meeting that is currently taking place in Varanasi is perhaps the most important of all the others, because it brings together the results of all the others, you know, whether it is the tourism or the women's meeting or the Think 20, it brings together all of those outcomes, all of those ideas into a collective whole. And I think the impact of this meeting's outcome on the G20 summit in New Delhi in September, that will indeed be very strong and positive. So I think the tone has been set this morning by the video message which our Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji gave at the G20 Development Ministers meeting, and also the specific plans of action set forward in the keynote address and message by our External Affairs Minister, Dr. Jaishankar. And our Prime Minister gave the very, very special focus. He spoke about Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, as you've said. It's a very important aspect because we take that very seriously. The world is one, and if you try to have divided progress, nobody can achieve that progress because it will fall apart. Today, it's an integrated whole, and leaving people behind is just not a possibility if you want to move ahead for yourself and for the world as a whole. So the question is, how do we move forward in the world as a whole? For that, India has taken the Sustainable Development Goals, which were adopted in 2015 by the UN, as a benchmark, because these Sustainable Development Goals were actually a very good set of objectives which were adopted in 2015 with the target of implementation by 2030. They were very comprehensive. They covered all aspects of development and they were integrated. Like, for example, gender issues appear not only in SDG 5, which is for gender, but also in many other SDGs, in the SDG of education, in the SDG of poverty alleviation, in the SDG of health and nutrition. So the integrated aspect was a very important one, and that is why I am particularly happy that this achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals in the next 7 years has been chosen for special focus. And India has presented a very ambitious, a very well-created, well-crafted action plan for achieving these Sustainable Development Goals in the next 7 years, so that we keep up the target of 2030. The most important part in the presentation being made is there must be comprehensive and inclusive and universal, and nobody must be left out. Now this is very important, and this shows India's leadership of the Global South, that we realize that it is developing countries who are being left out. They have been left behind and they are suffering greatly, not only by lack of development, but compounded by the pandemic, breaking of the supply chain, disruption of supply chains, and making it very difficult for individual countries even to meet their basic needs. And so we have to have a comprehensive plan, whether it is food security, energy security, the health for all these have to be integrated into one plan. And some of the aspects that have been chosen by our Prime Minister in his message, one is to overcome the data divide. That there is this huge data divide. There's data illiteracy, digital illiteracy on the one hand, and data inaccessibility at the same time. If you're digitally illiterate, then you cannot access any of the data. The data becomes inaccessible to you and you are left behind. Internet accessibility, smartphones, computers, all these things have to be equally available to all, so that the data divide is overcome and people are not left out because of the data divide. And certainly India's own tremendous achievements in aspects like digital payments, and where we are today the world leaders by far, we are way ahead of the rest of the world. And we are willing to share this with other developing countries. We're willing to bring them also on par in terms of data literacy, digital literacy, in terms of digital payments, in terms of assuring that the youngsters get computer education and so on. So this is a very important aspect that our Prime Minister mentioned. The second aspect was on women-led development. I think this is a very valuable recognition that our Prime Minister has given. It has been one of the big focus areas of the G20, and I really appreciate it, because since 2009, my own group, South Asia Women's Network, we've been fighting for this, calling it women-led development, giving women the leadership, the agency, making them key stakeholders. And this is what has been recognized in today's meeting, that gender equality and women's empowerment are crucial to achieve the SDGs. And unless we have women-led development, we will not be able to achieve the SDGs by 2030. So this is very important. And the third aspect, which was there also there in the afternoon session today, on which our External Affairs Minister also spoke, is green development. Life approach, LIFE, lifestyle for environment, which again is an Indian concept, which is put forward by a Prime Minister. And I think this is very valuable, because we recognize that, you can make all these rules and regulations and climate change goals and even climate finance and so on. But unless you change your lifestyle, unless you're prepared to make those basic changes in your lifestyle, all the rules and regulations mean nothing. You will never achieve it. Let's take the use of plastic, for example. Unless you recognize what you have to do with that, the oceans of the world are being flooded with millions of tons of plastic.
Absolutely.
And the fish life, the aquatic life is really hampered. They are dying. They're coming, they're being found dead on the shores in many countries. Even today there was an announcement about a lot of fish lying dead on the shores of one of the states in America. So, this whole business of lifestyle change has to be universally recognized and universally accepted.
Right, ma'am. Let me also talk about the fact that post-COVID and the Ukraine-Russia war, these two incidents, ma'am, They have brought philosophy to the world, and that is that we all live in a symbiotic relationship. All countries. None can exist without the other. In that context, the Honorable Prime Minister has talked about development being a core issue for the Global South. Do you see that happening? Because for a long time, Global South was neglected. Now, our Prime Minister is becoming the voice of the Global South, and whether it is environment or tourism, we are now showcasing ourselves, marketing ourselves well.
Yes, certainly. I think that was a very beginning point of our Prime Minister's video message this morning, and where he said that development is a core issue for the Global South. And we are the countries who have been impacted by these two issues, very, very disastrous issues, the pandemic and the Ukraine-Russia crisis. And these have led to the food crisis, they led to a fuel crisis, and has led to a fertilizer crisis. And so now these crises themselves are leading to instabilities and geopolitical tensions, because we know that food security affects every country in the world, and because of the supplies coming from Ukraine and Russia being disrupted, it has made such a great crisis that India has stepped forward, and from our own reserves of wheat and rice, we have sent grain supplies to any of our fellow developing countries who needed them, and they have appreciated them most valuably. So I think the harmonized, symbiotic, integrated nature of world development is becoming evident more and more, and for this you need leadership to highlight this message and get the developed countries of the world to accept it. And this is the leadership that India is so valuably providing during the G20, because it has not only arranged these large number of meetings on different issues, but it is walking the talk by putting forward very specific programs. It is not just having meetings for discussion and then people go away and forget about it, but each meeting, and this particular meeting, Development Ministers meeting, is particularly significant because it has brought together so many of the other discussions, and it has brought it together in the context of the importance of development and in the context of the importance of achieving the SDGs by 2030, and in the context of the need for the green development through the changing of lifestyle approach. And I think that all the feedback that we have is that the developing countries really value this leadership.
Right. As we hold meetings all over the country, from Udaipur to Rann of Kutch to Jammu Kashmir to Sikkim to Delhi, we earnestly hope that the voice of the Global South is heard. Not just that, we also hope that the developed nations, which have always been very good marketers, India is now poised to become hot tourist spot, seeing the diversity that we can offer to the world. That is another beautiful byproduct of the G20 meetings. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you.
That was our hotspot section, and now in some more news. Controller and Auditor General CAG of India, Girish Chandra Murmu, has called for the adoption of artificial intelligence into auditing processes to increase their effectiveness. Cautioning against the perils of AI, he however emphasized that it is essential that the policymakers put in place the processes to responsibly harness the potential of this technology. Mr. Murmu was delivering the inaugural address at the second summit of the Empowerment Group of the Supreme Audit Institutions, SAIs, of G20 in Panaji on Monday. He said the Supreme Audit Institutions have a crucial role to play in the application of artificial intelligence and the blue economy to ensure good governance, transparency, and accountability in auditing. Mr. Murmu stated that their all-pervasive and cross-cutting nature necessitate close cooperation among the SAIs for knowledge sharing and capacity building. Highlighting the role of the blue economy, he said it is essential for stabilizing the climate, spurring economic development, and attaining the SDGs.
Development paradigm of the economy seeking to harness ocean resources, establishing climate spurring economic development is essential for attaining the sustainable development goals. The blue economy has diverse components that include not only the traditional ocean industries such as fisheries, tourism and maritime transport, but also new and emerging activities such as offshore renewable energy, aquaculture, seabed extractive activities and marine biotechnology and bioprospecting.
This is Akashvani giving you the world news. Welcome back. Union Minister for Commerce and Industry Piyush Goyal has said that India and UAE are looking forward to take the bilateral trade in the non-petroleum products to $100 billion by 2030. The minister was speaking after the first meeting of the Joint Committee of India and UAE Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, CEPA, in the presence of Minister of State for Foreign Trade, UAE, Dr. Sani bin Ahmed Al Ziaudi in New Delhi. Mr. Piyush Goyal said that currently India-UAE trade in non-petroleum products is worth $48 billion and both the countries mutually agreed to take it forward to $100 billion. Talking about the first meeting of the Joint Committee of India and UAE, CEPA, he said that there are significant outcomes from the meeting to expand the trade and business opportunities between the two countries. During the meeting, both the countries agreed to set up UAE-India CEPA Council that serves as a vehicle for both the government and business community to facilitate smooth implementation of CEPA. The focus area of the new council will be in expanding opportunities in MSME, women entrepreneurs and startup sector. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will distribute about 70,000 appointment letters to newly inducted recruits under Rozgar Mela on Tuesday through video conferencing. Mr. Modi will also address the appointees on the occasion. The Rozgar Mela will be held at 43 locations across the country. The recruitments are taking place across central government departments as well as state governments and union territories supporting the initiative. Retail inflation based on the Consumer Price Index CPI eased to a 25-month low of 4.25% in the month of May this year. Inflation in April stood at 4.7%. Inflation has fallen mainly due to the easing of food prices such as cereals and vegetables as well as lower energy prices. As per the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation data released on Monday, the CPI last month dropped to 2.91% from 3.84% in April. Rural inflation stood at 4.1% in May, while urban inflation was at 4.27%. The government had mandated the central bank to maintain retail inflation at 4% with a margin of 2% on either side. The industrial output of India, however, rose to 4.2% in April this year. According to the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation data, the Index of Industrial Production (IIP) expanded as manufacturing sector's output grew 4.9% in April, while mining output rose by 5.1%. Power generation declined by 1.1% in April. Factory output measured in terms of IIP grew at 6.7% in April last year. Key domestic indices on Monday ended with marginal gains. The Sensex at the Bombay Stock Exchange closed above the 62,700 level, while the Nifty at the National Stock Exchange settled over the 18,600 mark. Both indices rose amid mixed cues from global share markets. A report.
The Sensex advanced 99 points or 0.16% to finish at 62,725. Nifty added 38 points or 0.21% to end at 18,602. Asian markets ended mixed. Japan's Nikkei 225 gained 0.5%. Singapore's Straits Times Index climbed 0.3%, while Hong Kong's Hang Seng was up at 0.1%. On the other hand, South Korea's Kospi fell 0.5%, while China's Shanghai Composite Index declined 0.1%. European markets were positive in intraday trade. Oil prices declined due to concerns about China's fuel demand growth and increased crude supply from Russia, while investors wait for the U.S. Federal Reserve meeting as they cautiously approach to the possibility of yet another rate hike. In intraday trade, Brent crude was trading at $73.25 a barrel. Back home, gold prices at Multi-Commodity Exchange for August contracts were trading at 59,832 rupees per 10 grams. On the other hand, silver was trading at 73,422 rupees per kilogram for July contracts, and in the forex market the rupee closed at 82 rupees and 43 paise against the US dollar. This is Lalema Aneja Dang for World News, Akashvani.
Extremely severe cyclonic storm Biparjoy is likely to cross Saurashtra and Kutch coast in Gujarat on Thursday. The Met Department has warned that the areas will witness wind speed reaching 125 to 135 km per hour, gusting to 150 km per hour. Talking to Akashvani News, IMD DG M. Mahapatra said that the Met Department has issued a yellow alert for Saurashtra and Kutch coast in Gujarat. The Met Department has issued a warning for heavy rain in Saurashtra and Kutch region of Gujarat. Prime Minister Modi chaired a high-level meeting to review preparedness of ministries and agencies of the centre as well as Gujarat to deal with the situation arising out of the impending cyclone Biparjoy. Former Italian Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi passed away at Milan San Raffaele Hospital on Monday. He was 86. Italy's longest-serving premier, Berlusconi, had been suffering from leukemia, and he had recently developed a lung infection. His Forza Italia party is part of Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni's right-wing coalition. On to sports now. Indian Olympic Association (IOA) announced on Monday that the impending Wrestling Federation of India WFI elections will be held on the 4th of July. It also announced that former J&K High Court Chief Justice Mahesh Mittal Kumar has been appointed as returning officer for the elections. On 27th April, the IOA had formed an ad hoc committee on the directions of the Sports Ministry to run the day-to-day affairs of the Federation after top wrestlers staged a protest against outgoing WFI chief Brij Bhushan Sharan Singh, accusing him of sexual harassment. Shuttler H.S. Pranoy will be in the spotlight at the Indonesia Open, a BWF Super 1000 tournament beginning on Tuesday. The world number 8 will be up against Kenta Nishimoto of Japan, and a first-round win is likely to pit him against China's Shi Yuqi in the second round. Meanwhile, double Olympic medalist P.V. Sindhu and 2021 World Championship silver medalist Kidambi Srikanth will also look for impressive starts to their campaign. The BWF World Tour is divided into 6 levels, including World Tour Finals, 4 Super 1000, 6 Super 750, 7 Super 500 and 11 Super 300. And now let's take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press. The Wall Street Journal reports, US moves to rejoin UNESCO to counter China's growing sway. The Globe and Mail writes, Chinese aircraft reportedly monitored Navy drill involving US, Canada, France and Japan. Le Monde reports, China's economy is still suffering 6 months after the end of its zero-COVID policy. The Japan Times writes, new Blackjack manga episode created using AI to be released in fall. And Washington Post reports, Philippines' most active volcano spews lava, prompting thousands to flee. And now, a quick look at the headlines once again. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi addresses G20 Development Ministers meeting in Varanasi via video message. Calls for use of technology to bridge data divide across the globe. G20 countries reaffirm their commitment to full and effective implementation of 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Retail inflation of India eases to 25 months low of 4.25% in May. Industrial output rises to 4.2% in April. Extremely severe cyclonic storm Biparjoy to cross Saurashtra and Kutch coast in Gujarat on Thursday. Prime Minister Modi reviews preparedness. Former Italian Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi passes away in Milan. On to sports. Wrestling Federation of India elections to be held on the 4th of next month. And in badminton, H.S. Pranoy to lead India's charge at Indonesia Super 1000 tournament in Jakarta. And now, before we end, let us listen to Mahatma Gandhi's favorite bhajan, Vaishnav Jan by artists from Russia. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.